I've just completed the first session with a Trichotillomania client. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's people that pull their hair out, whose dissociated part was very clear of its purpose, but didn't have ideas how it could help the client fulfill its purpose without urging her to pull her hair. We called on other parts to help. So from that, I'm guessing that you're doing like a 6-step reframe, but they're yet to play ball. Now, this is interesting when I read this earlier. Now, Richard doesn't teach 6-step reframing anymore, but it's a very useful exercise to do in certain contexts. So I'm assuming that this is a 6-step reframe and the other parts, but they're yet to play ball. I've never had a part not play ball when I've done 6-step reframing. And I think that's down to the setup.
That's where I was going to go with that as well.
It's actually how you set it up so that they don't actually have a choice but to play ball. And it's a matter of negotiating. And if they don't come up with alternative behaviors, I might even say something along the lines of, do you agree there are behaviors that you haven't thought of yet that you could use in place of this behavior? And I've never had anybody say no to that. So that's really my thoughts. Now, you said here, to move the session forward, I got an unconscious response to stop pulling the hair and that the part or parts would share an idea when ready. You've got like a naughty child in there, and only pursue it if it was good for her. And again, I would say that was in the setup. I'd love to know further ideas of how to deal with such a challenge in the moment. Well, if the first session, if I did do something like 6-step reframing and it didn't work, at the next session, I would do something else. And that's because in the back of my head, I've got Richard's voice telling me, do something else. Because if you've gone through that process once and it hasn't worked, that person may then be thinking, well, that didn't work. So then you need to go in your toolbox and think about, so what else can we do? You could even, do a compulsion blowout on that, actually. There are other things you could use. You could create a propulsion system that propels her away from hair pulling and towards having a lovely, wonderful, luscious head of hair. There's all sorts of things. But again, it would depend on the person in front of me.
Yeah, there's a lot there, isn't there?
I
think it's one of those things. I mean, one of the things that I'm aware when we do these AHA sessions is we can't give prescriptive solutions to individual sessions because you have to work with the person that's in front of you. And all we can do is maybe just share some of the past experiences we've had, some things that have worked. But I completely agree with what you said there, Tina, that I've never had resistance. However, there's a phrase, I can't remember who came up with it, it's like doing the work before you do the work. Start to think about conversationally doing the work before you actually do any work. And that's very easy by telling stories, telling metaphors, pulling hair. It's one of those things that becomes an unconscious process, and there's always something that's a benefit from it. It could be, it's like biting nails, isn't it? People get to relieve their jaw tension by gnashing away at their nails.
I love the stories. Remember Richard used to tell those stories about that guy that was biting nails in the room, and he was sitting in the front, and he didn't even want to stop biting his nails. He's just sitting right in the front of Richard biting his nails, and he said, don't do that. you have no idea what's in your nails. He said the people go to the toilet, they don't wash their hands,
the handrail,
the handrail and the doorknob.
And Richard's building a propulsion mechanism to basically go, stop that, and do something else. So what I would do in situations like that, not every time because everyone's different, what I've done many times, is to build that propulsion mechanism as part of the pre-frame, talking about, oh yeah, because we've got to teach the system. Your system can learn to stop doing something which it's learned to do very automatically, and instead learn to do something else that's even better for you. Now, I don't know what that's going to be yet. So you have this, they think you're just having a conversation, a chat at the very beginning, but you're actually talking to the unconscious and setting up the propulsion mechanism, going, stop that. As the hand comes up, stop it. No, 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 no. And just relax. And then you can grow this luscious hair. Yeah. So it's like move away from something, move towards.
Yeah.
And then you can do the work. But I think certainly with the 6-step pre-frame, it does come down to how you do the pre-frame of the 6-step reframe.
It is. But everything's in the setup, isn't it?
Totally. Yeah.
It's all about when you have that first conversation with them, the first time they ring you and talk to you or email you, it's how you set everything up from the very beginning.
Yeah. I don't know how quickly the habit's going to change for you. Yeah. Presupposes many things, doesn't it? Yeah. And even if there was something like that where you're getting maybe a digital no, some resistance, another way of looking at it is, what about just reducing and reducing and reducing? So if you do come up against something where it's like and it shouldn't be a digital yes, no, because you inoculate against that by your setup. The question is, I don't know how much you can reduce the amount of pulling, maybe 50%.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if you can do 50%, you can do 70%, can't you? And so, and again, it would be in your tonality as well. So instead of asking a question, you turn it into a command. So you're not even asking if it's 50%. Well, if you've done 50%, you can agree to 70 now, can't you? So I'm not doing great with my tonality at the moment, but you get the idea.
Yeah. And the other thing that's kind of in my head talking about that, I mean, a lot of people when they pull the hair, when they self-harm, because the hair pulling comes under self-harming, they do it because they get something out of it. So if the 6-step reframing isn't working, you need to deal with what they're covering up
and the ecology of it.
Yeah, what is it doing for them? So there's obviously something that's been missed. I worked with a girl. I mean, she was literally bald up here. She pulled so much hair out, and she was so stressed because of the stuff that was going on in her life. And every time she ripped the hair out of her head, it was a release. So it's like she was releasing pressure. So maybe you need to take a step back and deal with whatever that is.